Millennials, am I right?
Good evening. We're going to call to order this evening's Salem-Keizer School District Budget Committee meeting for May 15th. And before we get started, I wanted to take just a moment because it is election night this evening, and we wanted to say a huge thank you to Salem-Keizer School District staff, the PAC, the Facilities Task Force that worked very hard on the bond, and the board itself as well. So we just wanted to say a thank you to everyone for all of your hard work, and I'm not going to jinx it by saying anything else, but thank you. So we're going to start with just the committee attendance. We have a couple of absences, it looks like. Looks like Chuck is not here, and Jim are absent this evening. So for first up on the agenda, we are going to have some follow-up from the superintendent regarding questions from last week's budget committee meeting, and then if there are any additional questions from the original questions that we submitted, we'll have that opportunity to discuss those as well.
All right, so we gave you a written answer to what we heard were the questions. We didn't run these through the committee process last time, and I think if there are additional questions, we should run them through the process at this point. So there's a question about Willamette Promise. We do have the ability to grab some of that. We didn't have time for tonight to get it. There's a number of data sets we can pull from, and we could do that for next week, but it just would take some staff time. The next question was, what exactly is funded for Ctek out of Measure 98? And you have the full list of what's funded out of Measure 98 for Ctek. The next question was around what would it cost the district to add school-based health assistants and drug and alcohol counselors. And if we added about 1.5 hours per day to each elementary school, that would be about $400,000. When I say about, it's an estimate because we had to put in some dollars for benefits in case there were a few would-be employees that reached health insurance status. So it's really an estimate about what that would cost. There also is still, this wasn't a question, but I'll just make a comment, there's still a fairly great need for nurses. We're still at about a 1 to 2,200 ratio for our school nurses, which is a lot. And then the other question came up about what is the cost of a full-time drug and alcohol counselor, and that's at $118,000. The additional questions that came up around AVID were what we saw as some student achievement type questions. Who are the kids? That sort of thing. We are doing a strategic plan report on AVID in June, and we could add those to the that report at that time. And we can let budget committee members know that that's coming. But we did not prepare it for this meeting. So this is the follow-up we had for questions, and I'm not sure if you want to take others or run them through the process at this time.
Do we have any additional questions based on those? Or, and as we mentioned, anything that would require a significant amount of staff time for follow-up, we will run through the process at this point because we are scheduled to deliberate next week. So we want to make sure that we're using our time wisely. But do we have follow-up questions? And I know the next agenda item is going to be addressing some of these. So we can take additional questions now, or you might have questions after the superintendent's next presentation. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I don't see any questions, so thank you.
All right, so the second question is to look ahead to think about what are some outline of potential changes. My hope was that I could actually fully outline those for you tonight, but we still have a lot of moving pieces on the revenue side. So for example, today we got our final May adjustment in our state school fund for last year and for this year. What that final state adjustment said is that we have $1 million coming to us. But if you look on page 50 in the budget book, in the 17-18 column in the budget book, we already have planned that we were getting that $1 million. So although today it looks like there's an increase in revenue, it's really, we'd already planned for that. So that's just the process of how they allocate resources and true up the resources each year. So it's on page 50, 17-18 budget. It says state school fund grant prior year adjustment. And it's right at $1 million there. If you look back at the actuals over the past couple years, you can see that we've gotten as much as 2.1 million or 1.4 million. Those are actuals, those are audited amounts. This year, that projection is coming in right along where we projected for that. The other thing we're tracking is we're looking at where we will be with expenditures. And the expenditures, affect the ending fund balance and therefore can affect our beginning fund balance. So if there's better projections about the ending fund balance, we roll it into revenue in the beginning fund balance. So we're tracking our expenditures. The thing we are really struggling a bit with is our adult assistance and special ed. So we're seeing a really big spike in our special education costs. We still believe we're on good track for where we projected for beginning fund revenue, and we think there'll be a little bit more to add towards programs. And so that's what we're going to track the end of this week so we can bring you revision to the proposed budget. The other thing that will happen is if the bond passes tonight, we'll bring in a proposed change to the budget that shows how we will accept revenue and expenditures if that passes. So what I will tell you is that the priorities I'm looking at for ads right now are around the school-based health assistance that the elementary office managers spoke about. I also would like to boost the licensed reserve FTE so that as we have spikes of enrollment that we didn't expect, we'd have the ability to add those. So I'm thinking about licensed reserve FTE. I'm also looking at some counselors, which have been high on people's mind, whether they're drug and alcohol or another embedded counselor. I also want to make the final investment in the math adoption so we can get that across schools, and I'll look at some investments in infrastructure. We're keeping a close eye on our risk fund right now, as we've had a bit of activity in the risk fund. And then, as you've seen in the infrastructure reports, the continuing need for things like buses. So those are my priorities. I don't have exact numbers of those yet, and I'll bring those in next week. But I believe there'll be a little bit of room to add some of those things. One of the things I'm thinking about around the school-based health assistance is if we can't get to all 44 schools, we put a pool together so we can look at student health needs, the existing FTE, and do some ads based on the actual who the kids are at the school and what the need might be. So that's what we're tracking. It's fairly normal that it's a bit up and down this time of year, and it's fairly normal we'll bring in some changes next week. So questions about any of that?
Okay. Portia?
When you say math adoption, are you talking about the new program?
The new math materials,
New math.
yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
thanks.
Yep. The proposed budget recommended an amount to be transferred that was not enough to get to every elementary school. So my goal would be an amount that gets us to a full adoption across all of our elementary schools. Yep.
Okay. Thank you. So, clarify question.
Yeah, any other clarifying questions related to the questions we asked last week, the questions we presented tonight, or any information at this point?
Well, I have one question, but it's not relating to the things we were just talking about. Would we be able to get something, or could you show us where in the budget we could find how much we spend on legal counsel?
That was in the questions that we presented, that we gave to you last week.
Okay, cool.
So it's there.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Mark?
So, I guess I have a process question. Is now the place in the agenda where if we want a question to go through process, because there were a number on the back of last week's packet that were deferred to committee that we haven't talked about at all, is now the point in the agenda where you want those raised again for the possibility of?
I think that's a big,
Okay.
yeah.
No, that would be fine. We can go ahead
Okay.
and do that. So yeah, those that were listed on the back as requiring additional or significant staff time, we would run it through the process, which was to take have someone make a proposal, and then we vote on whether or not we want the additional staff time used on it.
Okay, so with that in mind, I'd refer people to number 74, which asked a question about preventative and deferred maintenance, which strike me as two different kinds of concepts. One actually prevents the other from taking place, and asked for some description around the relationship between those parts of that line item and that budget. And I think that it would be really helpful to us as a budget committee to understand what are we doing to prevent deferred maintenance in future budgets and/or bond cycles, and would like some kind of response to how this budget is structured on those kinds of questions.
So I would propose first, we see if staff wanted to make any comments on the distinction between the two for now. Do we have any comments at this point? Sorry.
Sure.
Sorry, Mark.
Couple things. In our 2008 bond, we had nearly 160 million that has actually been focused on the deferred maintenance work in the district. So as we're looking at the 2018 bond, we're not talking about deferred maintenance. We're talking about the maintenance, the future maintenance, which one could say is preventative, but it's really, as far as the technical term, it's non-routine maintenance. So it's the number of roofs in the next 10 years and HVAC systems. So I think both bonds address the deferred. 2008 is really about the deferred maintenance, the backlog, and the 2018 is really kind of the what's coming at us. Now, in the budget, Fund 419 is preventative and deferred maintenance.
Right.
So it's outside of the general fund, and what the district has been doing for several years is making we're at what, 1.25 million? That's an annual transfer out of the general fund into the preventative and deferred maintenance fund. And so that's a fund that doesn't zero out to the ending fund balance. That's why it's moved outside of the general fund. So if you look on page 197, you'll see where we are, and we've got a proposed budget of approximately 4 million. So that's kind of where our deferred and preventative maintenance work goes. And we put it in one pot because you're right, the more preventative maintenance we can do, the less deferred maintenance accumulates.
So I guess my question is, within that pot that has those two labels on it, how much of what is spent would you describe as primarily preventative versus deferred that we hadn't dealt with when it would have been preventative?
I don't have that exact figure, and it's a fund that's outside of the general fund. I mean, we can get that for you. I guess part of the question would be, how does that help you get to a place where you can approve the budget? And if it's something that the committee needs to understand better, then we can roll that through the process.
I guess I would, can I respond? I guess I would phrase it this way. It's not going to necessarily change my vote on this budget, so in that respect, it's not necessary information, but I view our responsibility as citizens, members of the Budget Committee, as asking questions on behalf of the public so that the public can understand how all of the finances of the school district work. And this seems a relevant question to the public. And so in that respect, I think it's an answer that we ought to have. Will it change my vote? No. But I think it's information that the public ought to have and understand about how the school district is managing its resources.
Okay. So a combination of the response that you just received with regards to the difference between the two and how they're rolled together in one, combined with what you would like is a breakdown between the two to be able to answer that question.
Yeah,
Okay.
Or an approximate.
right.
Yeah.
I'm looking for a sense of how are we managing this fund between preventative and deferred.
Okay. Marie?
And I guess if it took a lot of staff time, I'm not sure if it would or not, maybe we could have a future board report that would be out to the public and make sure that the Budget Committee is aware of that report as well.
Yeah.
Instead of, maybe we have other things that we need to do that will affect how we want to vote.
And I'd be fine with that if there were a commitment to do that kind of report. And I guess I would make a request that in future budgets and future budget messages, there be some of this kind of information up front so that it's not a crunch at the end in terms of trying to pull the information together.
So I think we need to decide if the committee wants it. That's the next.
Okay. And I think that your clarifying point is you don't need necessarily the exact figures, but kind of an estimate between the difference between the two. Okay. So we have an option of voting for that request at this point, or we also have the option, it sounds like, of voting for a future report to the school board. So,
With a report.
Right.
To the Budget Committee.
right. Okay.
I would be inclined to favor the future report. I mean, my sense is that this is something that the board and the public need to be cognizant of, but it's also something that I haven't heard any particular concerns about that, the current balancing of that. And I mean, I know there are times when, in budget shortfalls, that the preventative maintenance goes by the wayside, and that you do start to worry about whether you're doing the right balance. I mean, I don't but yeah, I think it's something to be aware of, but it doesn't, of the various things that have been talked about as issues with this budget for next week, it doesn't seem like it.
Okay.
It's really, I mean, my guess is that there are other things that staff may need to be working on.
Okay. Any other comments with regards to this before we take a vote? And I think we'll take a vote with regards to go ahead, Paul. Sorry.
My thought would be that if we're going to require a future report and something that's not part of the budget, it could be added as an amendment to the actual motion to approve the budget, that this would take place. It would be something like a budget note, and there would be an expectation tied to the passage of the budget.
I like the sound of that.
If that's what Mr. Bateman wants.
Or you could just get a commitment from staff that they'll give the board a report.
How much time are we talking about it taking to put this together?
Again, I haven't really put any thought into it, to be honest with you. So what I would say, though, is if it's important to the committee, we have a process that would run that through. If it's important to the board, then the board will ask for a report.
Okay.
Well, so I guess that's my question in terms of this. Can this body actually tie the board to requesting and receiving such a report?
Well, why don't we just request it as our board right now?
can. You can,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I don't think that we need an amendment to the budget to require us to do that. I think that we could make that commitment to make that request as a board.
That's good enough for me.
Yeah, I think anything that we've asked of our administration to provide us in the future, they have done it.
Right.
And I believe that they will.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and I'd be happy to put that, in writing, in an email to staff to request that as a board member.
Okay, thank you.
Any other? Paul?
If we're done with that one, if Mark's done, I believe that the information in 76 and 77, John alluded to at the last board meeting. I don't think that should take any time at all to come up with. 76 is basically a scattergram, which is what everybody bargains off of, and which everybody would somewhat, to a great degree, be paid off of. It's just salaries. It doesn't have anything to do with the benefits. And then John referenced the turnover rate last week as being about 10%. He must have something that's coming off of. So I wouldn't think that HR would have to put a great deal of time into coming up with those numbers for somebody, or at least many of them.
Okay. I would say on number 77, there are multiple parts to that question, including,
But they all come together.
right. So there are a significant number of requests associated with that one. Thoughts on those?
So so this is kind of a breakdown, basically, of the total numbers that we have for that area. So this would show more detail of some of it, of where it's going. How long would that take staff to provide such information?
Is John here? I can't
yeah,
see.
John's not here. If the scattergram's already developed for the other district staff, that's not hard if it's already developed. The staff turnover, the turnover rate, he quoted last time, it's when you get down to all the other questions. And I guess my question is, are we interested in putting some sort of a package forward to increase retention? Or, so I'm trying to say, what's the purpose?
Well,
Why
as
would-
it does fit with the strategic plan, number 7, it seems like it is a priority for the district. So therefore, I'd like to know what the costs are and what's associated with it, because perhaps there are other programs that need to be reduced, and this needs to be the priority. If that is the priority for hiring, and I keep looking up there, as I read the strategic plan about diversity, I'd like to see some of the diversity numbers and how we're doing with that.
And
Because
so,
perhaps we need to beef those up.
so is the question around hiring, you'd like to know cost for recruitment?
Sure. Does that need to be expanded?
So,
And I think we had a presentation, I believe, last year about the challenges with recruitment. I don't think we got the specific numbers, but there was quite a bit of discussion about how we recruit, where we recruit, the challenges, especially with regards to diversity. So I know we've been given that information at one point. I don't know that it had this level of detail, though. Marty?
So is the bigger concern about recruitment, or is the bigger concern about retention? Because we don't want to lose people who have experience. There's nothing more important than historical knowledge that people gain when they work for many years at the same job or in the same environment. So, is what we're really trying to find out, if we have a staff turnover issue, and is that for the board or the budget committee? Because I would want to know if we have a staff turnover issue and try to rectify that as a board member, but is that a budget question? I don't know the answer to that.
I think the second piece that you were referring to is for the board, because it's about decision-making with regards to strategic planning and things like that. But the numbers for recruitment, I think could be a budget committee question. Mark?
So there's a direct relationship between retention and
Right.
recruitment,
I think we-
and it becomes a cost-benefit analysis. If your recruitment costs are high enough, then, and you can do something to retain people, to reduce the number of people you have to recruit, then that's a good budget trade-off to make. So this is going to be a theme for me tonight. This is not necessarily a single year, this budget question. This is a long arc of where is our budgeting going and what are our financial resources going to. And by asking for answers now related to this budget, maybe we have answers that will help us think about future budgets. And that strikes me as a budget committee question. This is, how is the community understanding what we're doing and how we're managing our resources as a school district? And we need this kind of information year in and year out, even when things are going well, so that we can make sure that things are going well and structure our budget and strategic planning so that the budget is in fact a strategy document.
Okay, so, thank you. That's a good point. But just as a reminder, part of this, we're looking at budget numbers, but we're also, again, as we've said, as a board, we have received some presentations on quite a bit of this information. So that information has been discussed publicly. So we don't want to give the impression that, the district is not sharing information about how it, does recruitment and how it conducts retention. And so we don't want to confuse completely
But-
dollars with how the district recruits and retains, so.
So what I hear you saying is you're looking for not just like an answer right now, but a future, how ongoing, how are we addressing retention and hiring and stuff, and maybe that can be included in a future budget item? Does that make sense that, these are the dollars we spend on, I don't know, maybe we can include it in some sort of future budget information, that they have in the summary or, as part of a particular chapter or something, and we can watch it over the years then with each year's budget.
Okay, Paul?
No, I want to see the dollars. I don't want to wait. Yeah, great, we had a presentation on what was being done. We don't know how much it cost or how much effort or energy was put into it for cost. Because as Mark said, the cost-benefit analysis is such that if we're losing more than we're gaining and we're spending a lot, what good is it? I mean, we put a lot into professional development and then we lose people. Why are we losing them? How come we're not putting it into programs where we're keeping them? Maybe we need to be shifting some of the recruitment or some other dollars to retention. Because again, I keep looking up here at the strategic plan document talking about retention and all of the other pieces that go into it. And it's like, this seems to be an area that we're lacking in. And we can have the argument, does the budget direct the plan or does the plan direct the budget? Well, that's where we're going here. And it seems to me the budget directs the plan and shows our priorities, and we're not showing those priorities. So I'd like to see the dollar amounts.
Okay, so we can take a vote with regards to the dollar amounts, but I think we also need to just be cognizant of what the discussion would be then, whether that is a discussion for the budget committee to recommend a budget, or is that a conversation for the school board, or is it both? So,
Depends on what the answer looks like.
Courtney?
I just wanted to clarify, so are we going to vote on what are our total costs associated with recruitment of licensed staff? Is that correct, or was there more?
Right
Because there's
now-
lots of other things in this paragraph.
Sorry.
I'm asking for the dollar amounts associated with it, not the program, just the dollar amounts we're currently spending.
Right, associated with
With
recruitment?
With recruitment.
Since
and
we
any other
all,
Retention
Hold on,
programs,
hold on.
and any other retention programs we might have.
Okay, so for recruitment,
And that's a budget question, not a board question.
right. So I'm just trying to understand the question. So for recruitment and for what we spend on
Right.
retention strategies or.
Right.
Okay.
So to clarify then, in number 77, which ones are you requesting?
Can you say the letter?
Number 77,
No, the letter, like A, B, C, D,
that's what I just asked. Which ones?
differently, but that's fine.
A, C, D, E, G, and to some degree F, but the first ones I mentioned. And again, those should be readily available to HR, they should know.
Okay.
They could already be line items in here.
Okay. Any other comments or discussion about this before we vote on number 77, A, C, D, E, and F? Okay.
Said G.
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 G, sorry. Okay. So how do we?
Yeah, I would say, are
So
we
all-
at 8 or 6? 8.
8, okay. So all those in favor of requesting the additional information for item number 77, A, C, D, E, F, and G, please signify by raising your hand so we can get a count. 1, 2, 3, 4,
Okay, they're there.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, so we have 11 requests, so.
We're there, and just to clarify, actually, for this process, it is 6.
Okay,
That's what I.
For making a change, it's 8.
okay, great. Okay, so we have consensus on that request. Thank you.
So that didn't include Paul's request for 76.
No, it did not. No.
Can we vote on that also?
Okay. So, number 76, license salary, that would be the scattergram request
For the other staff.
for the other staff.
No, to be clear, this is asking for a scattergram on licensed staff for the numbers of staff in each of the cells in the current licensed staff salary scattergram.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. And I am going to ask that you just raise your hand so I acknowledge, because I got a reminder last week that we need to acknowledge, so thank you. Okay, so we'll take a vote on number 76. So all those in favor of requesting the information in item number 76, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 4. So that one is not approved.
Madam Chair,
Yes?
I believe we could get that information probably from another source tonight if we asked for it nicely. Do we want to go after it a different way? In fact, if he's in the back of the room, he might have it with him. You have it with you? He doesn't.
Okay.
But we could have it tomorrow for the board if those who do want to see it.
We could, if you have access and then want to send that out. Okay. Any of the other items? Oh, sorry. Mark, thank you.
Number 78. So, and I lost the reference, but one of the earlier questions asked about why behavioral specialists are being recategorized into school level. And the answer was something around easier classification and board level or state level definitions, but that the HR system allows for easy querying in order to be able to identify how many people we have in what kind of categories. So number 78 is asking for, within the school level numbers that we have here, can we pull out and identify some of these other categories, specifically non-teaching positions, which I assume the behavioral specialist would qualify as, and we've inflated those numbers through the recategorization. So this is asking for us to use our nice little query system to answer a question that a different answer said we can easily do.
So to clarify, the question asks for what percentage are in non-teaching positions.
Correct.
That would be,
That's the actual answer we
That's-
want for number 78.
okay.
And I'm referring to another question that said, we have a system that allows us to do
Okay.
this.
Got it. Thank you. Okay. So we will take a vote on number 78 as written. So all those in, oh, sorry, Marty?
Question, so what type of staff time would this question take to resolve? Is it basically a query, maybe a half-hour project, or are we talking days?
No, it's not. It's maybe a couple hours, though, by the time we sort data and pull names off and that. I think that Brett could, in our HR, can do that in a couple hours, but I don't know that for a fact.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. Yes, Virginia?
Can I ask him a question? Can I ask Mark a question?
If
Hi.
it's, sure.
So, when you get this information, how is that, what kind of question in your mind are you trying to answer? Or what kind of question in the budget are you trying to answer with this answer?
I'm trying to understand the relationship between support services with licensed staff and teaching positions with licensed staff. That there's lots of times, lots of public policy discussion around those, and it sometimes is phrased, and I don't always like this phrasing, as dollars in the classroom. And I think we ought to have the information so that we can have an intelligent conversation about that public policy discussion. And it's a budget question from that standpoint.
Thanks.
Other questions or comments regarding, Kathy?
So my topic's slightly different. Is this appropriate, or are we done with that discussion?
No, I don't think we voted on this one yet, but we'll come right back to you. Okay. So regarding number 78, we'll do the same process. All those in favor of requesting the information on non-teaching positions as phrased in number 78, please raise your hand. That one we can do. So 1, 2, 3, hold it. You gotta count. Up or down, Jesse?
Stay up.
Okay. 5, 6, 7. Okay, thank you. Okay. Kathy?
Being a newbie at this, bear that in mind. So Superintendent Perry, you were going to inject, or you're talking about injecting drug and alcohol counselors. So I specifically would request an out-of-school staff member, such as one of those counselors. If it's one that you have requested, do I have to introduce it? It won't be additional money. I'm more concerned with the process we're giving those people.
So are you concerned about the, if I don't put it in there, you want to vote, you want to make a motion to put it in the budget? Or are you concerned about if we did put counselors in the budget, you want input on where they're allocated and how they're hired?
Exactly. Well, not how well, both is fine.
So tell me a little bit more about allocate, what you mean by how they're
I want
allocated.
an out-of-staff person who will center on those children that have been taken out of school in a more permanent arrangement than suspension. And I would like one person that takes over those families and those kids that aren't attending schools and comes up with citywide possible placements for them so they come in less damaged than they went out. No?
That's a big budget committee ask, because it doesn't quite fit in with the numbers. But I think the opinion about where they is something we can hear as staff about. If we add that counselors are high on your list, and you want to be sure that they really attend to places of the greatest need.
Yes.
the out-of-school placement, which I think that we need, and we heard some of this last time about drug and alcohol counselor, like at Roberts. We heard that and said, we need that here. But the piece about out of our district is a harder one for me to wrap my head around, what that means budgetarily.
Yeah, I didn't particularly mean out of the district. I meant a counselor that binds with that group of families and takes them all on. So they wouldn't be a counselor out of school, is what I was trying to say.
Okay, okay.
So at this point, do we have other comments or questions with regards, oh, sorry, Mark?
I have a whole bunch, so.
Okay, I want to make sure we have time for public comment, so how much, what is your estimate?
I don't have a time estimate.
Okay,
Should we move to public comment and then circle back to
yeah,
this at the end?
would that be okay?
That's fine.
Okay, okay. Do we have, I think we have a sign-up sheet. Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, so our process for public comment is I will call you up and you have 3 minutes and we will be setting the timer. We also ask that you provide your name and your address, and the topic should be fairly clear from it. And so first up is Mark Cowitz. And actually, we have your address, so thank you.
Oh, okay.
You put it on here, thank you.
You're welcome. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mark Cowitz. I reside at the Keizer area. I would like to bring to your attention the possibility of saving the district thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars. I know that sounds kind of hard to believe, but how do we do this? We do this by limiting the use of contractors and allowing the maintenance department to do the work by providing overtime. I know that these words don't sit well with any budget committee, but I do have some facts. We currently pay contractors $110 to $150 an hour per person. There are usually 2 persons doing the work, and this rate does not include vehicle fees, equipment fees, material fees, or the cost of having them return to fix something that they didn't do right the first time. However, on the flip side of that coin, you have us, maintenance, who are licensed and certified to do the same work, but at a fraction of the cost. So I myself, as an electrician, am at the top of the pay scale. So what that means is overtime for me would only cost $45 an hour. That's it. We have none of the overhead. We already have our material. We already have everything that we need to do the job and do it a lot less. We also get our material for cheaper. We have no vehicles, equipment fees, and we're vested in the work. We care about it, so we're going to do a better job. By providing maintenance, the means to do the work, you first and foremost save the district a sizable amount of money. Second, you increase the morale of maintenance department by giving them an opportunity to make some extra cash, which is always good. 3, the teachers in the schools will be happier because their requests are being met and getting it done cheaper, which is, it's a big issue with the schools. A lot of stuff that they want done can't get done because of the cost involved of doing it. And 4, the work is being done to a higher standard, which means longevity and stability all the way around. A lot of the stuff that the contractors put in right now, we have to come back and fix, because trying to get them to come back and do it, they wait and wait and wait. I know that we cannot cover everything. It's an impossibility. I mean, contractors are our way of life. But I do believe that we could put a dent in the cost. But somehow, and I don't know how, I've talked to everybody, there's a legal means of being able to allow us to tap into the money that is given to contractors. So that's it. I'm done.
Thank you.
You have a good day now. Bye.
Thank you. Okay, next up we have Lucia Sanchez.
Buenas noches, presidente, superintendente y miembros del comité del presupuesto. Mi nombre es Lucía Sánchez Caballero y vivo en el noroeste de Salem. Tengo 2 niños, uno de 11 y otro de 13 años, que asisten a Ctek y Adam Stevens. Como madre, estoy de acuerdo con la necesidad de aumentar el presupuesto para ayudar a los niños que tienen problemas de comportamiento y salud. Esto implica que desde la escuela primaria, ya que desde allí se miran problemas y se llevan a la escuela secundaria y a veces continúan hasta la preparatoria. Como facilitadora de la comunidad latina, tenemos padres de familia que vienen a nosotros con preocupaciones de diferentes comportamientos. Estas familias están mirando la necesidad de poner como prioridad la importancia de dar atención y solución a dichos comportamientos y no esperar a mirar una catástrofe en las escuelas de nuestros niños. Creo que recortar el desarrollo profesional de los maestros y docentes será un gran error. Parte de la solución de los problemas de comportamiento será ayudar a muchos de nuestros maestros a entender nuestras diferencias culturales y sobre todo a tener diferentes actitudes hacia nuestros niños con problemas de comportamiento. También creo que el desarrollo profesional debe hacerse para ayudar a los maestros con el estrés. La solución a un mal comportamiento no es enviarlos a casa, no es sacarlos del salón. La solución es reforzar la necesidad con apoyo. Por favor, no más recortes. Gracias por tomarse su tiempo para escucharnos. Estoy segura que vamos a tener una excelente respuesta de parte de ustedes. Gracias.
Hi, good evening. My name is Yadira, and I'm going to present the English version. And I live on Northeast Salem, Oregon. Good evening, Chairman, Superintendent, and Budget Committee members. My name is Lucia Sanchez Caballero, and I live in Northeast Salem. I have 2 children, 11 and 30 years old, who attended to Yoshikan and Adam Stevens. As a mother, I agree to the need to increase the budget to help children who have behavioral and health problems that we might see in elementary school years. These issues are sometimes carried into middle and high school. As a facilitator of the Latino community, we have parents who came to us with concerns of different behavioral issues. Those families are looking for the need to prioritize the importance of giving attention and solution to the behaviors and not waiting for a catastrophe to happen in our schools. I believe that cutting the professional development of teachers will be a big mistake. Part of the solution of behavioral problems will be to help our teachers to understand our cultural differences. Teachers should have different attitudes towards our children with behavioral problems. I also believe that professional development should be done to help teachers with stress. The solution to bad behavior is not to send them home. It's not to remove them from the classroom. The solution is to reinforce the need with support. Please, no more cuts. Thank you for taking your time to listen us. I am sure that we will have an excellent response from you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So next up, Jasmine Torres. And again, if you don't mind stating your address, please, for the record.
Buenas noches, presidente, superintendente y miembros del comité del presupuesto. Mi nombre es Jasmine Torres y vivo en el noreste de Salem. Yo quiero compartir las preocupaciones que nuestra comunidad está enfrentando en estos tiempos. Soy una representante bilingüe de mi comunidad. Una de las preocupaciones que nuestras familias tiene es el recorte de 12.94 FTE de asistentes de introducción bilingües en las escuelas del distrito de Salem-Keizer. Además, aunque esta disminución afecta el presupuesto total de los programas de ELD en varios miles de dólares, el distrito aún enfrenta el problema del acceso, según lo definimos todos nosotros, los maestros, los padres y la comunidad. En lugar del gobierno estatal o federal, sabemos que todavía carecerán de acceso y que los maestros tendrán dificultades para llenar el vacío con horas reducidas de asistencia de instrucción. Espero que puedan encontrar soluciones favorables para el éxito de los estudiantes bilingües. Gracias.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm going to present the English version. Good evening, Chairman, Ms. Superintendent, and Budget Committee members. My name is Jasmine Torres, and I live in East Salem. I want to share the concerns that our community is facing in those times. I am bilingual representative of my community. One of the concerns our family have is the cutting of 12.94 FTE of bilingual instructional assistant in Salem-Keizer School District. In addition, this decrease affects the total budget of thousands of dollars in ELD programs. The district still faces the problem of access and defined by all of us, teachers, parents, and the community. Rather than the state or federal government, we know that they will still lack access and that teachers will have difficulty filling the gap with reducing hours of instructional assistance. I hope you can find favorable solutions for the success of bilingual students. Thank you.
Thank you. And next up, we have Marcela Lagos.
Buenas tardes, presidente, superintendente y miembros del Comité del Presupuesto. Mi nombre es Marisela Lagos y vivo en el 3110 Moreland Avenida, noroeste, en Salem, Oregon. Tengo 3 niños de 18, 12 y 7 años que asisten a McKay, Waldo y a la escuela SCAT. Soy madre y representante de la comunidad de niños bilingües. Una de las preocupaciones que yo tengo como madre es el recorte de 12.94 FTE de asistencia de instructores bilingües en las escuelas primarias, ya que sabemos que nuestros niños latinos no están pasando lo suficiente los exámenes estatales. Este recorte les afectaría más, ya que necesitan extra ayuda. También me preocupan los recortes en la capacitación de docentes, ya que esto afectaría aún más a nuestros hijos latinos para alcanzar la meta de pasar los exámenes estatales y estar capacitados para ir a la universidad. Espero que puedan encontrar solución para el éxito académico de todos nuestros estudiantes bilingües. Gracias por darme la oportunidad y a los padres de familia de expresar nuestras preocupaciones. Gracias.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm going to present the English version. Good evening, Chairman, Superintendent, and Budget Committee members. My name is Marisela Lagos, and I live at 3110 Moreland Avenue Northeast, Salem, Oregon, 97305. I have 3 children, 18, 12, and 7 years, who attended to McKay, Waldo, and Scott Elementary. I am a mother and representative of bilingual children in our community. One of those concerns I have as a parent is the bilingual instructional assistant hour reduction of the 12.94 of FTE in our elementary schools. As we know that our Latino children are not passing enough state exams, this cut will affect them more as they need additional help. I am also concerned about the cuts in funding for training of our teachers, as this will future affect our Latino children to reach the goal of passing those state exams and properly prepare them to go to college. I hope you can find solutions for the academic success of all our bilingual students. Thank you for giving the community and the parents the opportunity to express our concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and the next up, Javier Torres. Can't quite read that. Hi.
Good evening, Chair and Superintendent and Budget Committee members. My name is Javier Quiroz, and I live at 3540 48th Avenue, Salem, Oregon, 97305. I have five grown children who attend public schools here in Salem, 7 great children and 2 great-grandchildren. I want to thank you for your hard work and for your collaboration with us in the past 4 years. It has meant a lot to me. Collaborating with the school district and the Summer Language and Cultural Institute has also had a big impact with the teachers that participated in the program. Last year, I had the privilege and the experience of working with a group of 19 teachers for 3 weeks through the Summer Program, Cultural Institute program. And I could see the excitement in learning how to better help the students as bilingual teachers, especially with the problem that bilingual students are facing with the language. One thing that worries me about the budget cuts is the impact of the 12.94 FTE bilingual instructional assistants in the elementary schools that will be impact. I understand that there has been a decrease in the number of students that qualify for English language development program, but even though hundreds did not qualify they will still need extra help because our families still have a low vocabulary level. I understand that my children, the many children will still be able to attend bilingual or dual language programs if their parents want them to keep their native language. But many of them will still need extra help, even if they not qualify. I am assuming that they did not qualify because we have more children from our second generation who are speaking English as Spanish at home. I hope you can find solution for this because students' success depends on this. Thank you very much for the opportunity to allow me to speak to you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next up, we have Mark Atkinson.
Good evening, Chairperson Sharon Blassie and Vice Chair Herrera Lopez, Superintendent Perry, and the members of the board and the Budget Committee. Thank you for your work. My name is Mark Atkinson. I live at 2262 Banyonwood Avenue Northwest, Salem, Oregon. I've called this community home for 22 years. I've had 3 children go through the public school system, and I've served this district as an employee for 20 years. You've mentioned some of the concerns I've already had with drug and alcohol counselors. $353,000 was allocated from the supplemental budget for drug and alcohol counselors. Why weren't they hired? I don't know. Why weren't they posted? I don't know. As a teacher at Ctek, I know the value firsthand of the drug and alcohol counselors' work. Yesterday, we had a hiring fair. I had students who have come through the program that were hired in industry, and after the application process, they were given a drug test form. It's important for my students at Ctek to have the support to remove drugs and alcohol from their life, and a counselor could help them do that. I've had training, I can support them, but I'm not a drug and alcohol counselor, nor do I want to be, because my workload is already overwhelming. The addition of this drug and alcohol counselor, or roaming ones, whatever you decide to do, will also answer some of the questions you had about recruitment and retention. I think the core of the retention issue is workload and feeling like professionals. It's been my passion for years to raise the issue of teacher voice, or the lack of it, with this board, with this administration, with my own administration and my colleagues. I believe if we can increase the voice that teachers have in what is happening in their day-to-day life, they will stay. They will tell their friends will come. There won't be a need to spend more money on recruitment and retention. I will hope and pray that you will include in this budget more counselors for drug and alcohol, because it will directly affect not only the students, but the staff who work in this district, and I think they will stay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next up is Mindy Merritt.
Thank you. Thank you. Board Chair Blassie, Vice Chair Herrera Lopez, Superintendent Perry, and members of the Budget Committee. My name is Mindy Merritt, and I reside at 2381 Teal Drive, Southeast Salem. Tonight, I am here to speak to you as the president of Salem-Keizer Education Association, and to speak to you about my members who are certified AVID educators and are proud of the work that they do. In addition to the work they are already doing as educators, as an AVID educator, they are expected to take on the following responsibilities without any additional compensation. They're expected to assist in the training of tutors using the AVID tutorial training materials. They're advocates for AVID students, especially with challenges of access and equity in advanced courses. They serve on the site team with certification and data collection and gather evidence to verify levels of performance for the certification self-study. They're active members of their site team. They promote school-wide uses of WICR strategies. They're advocates and provide professional learning for their staff regarding AVID methodologies as for their other staff members of the school as well as within their district. They weekly monitor their student grades and attendance in all of the classes that their students are attending, their AVID students. They monitor daily their student behavior in all of the AVID classes that are taking place. They have ongoing AVID support and probation meetings based on performance of students not meeting expectations. They follow up on plans created during those meetings with AVID lunch, power hour assignments, tracking sheets, etc. They serve as liaisons with parents who may have questions about a student's education and other classes. They communicate with other staff about AVID students, such as content of support plans. They attend field trips, which we've heard about at universities. They are actively involved in various recruitment periods and grade-to-grade transitions. They attend evening activities, such as family nights, 8th grade promotions, 5th grade orientation. My members do all of this, and they do this with a smile, and they do this with pride. They're proud of what they do, and they're proud of their students. And they do this all without any compensation. They do this all without, on top of, their full-time job. For me, this is a problem as the member, as the president of the association. Currently, AVID district staff positions are in the form of 1 FTE admin, a 0.5 FTE licensed position, and 1 FTE classified dedicated to supporting the success of the AVID program. This was shared at the last budget meeting as a cost of $218,799. My ask of this budget committee is how do we provide the appropriate compensation for those who are doing the work? What would it look like if we removed the administrative costs of the AVID and instead we provided our AVID educators with a differential to accommodate for the additional hours that they're expected to volunteer each week to ensure that their students succeed? What if instead of an AVID administrator for the district, each school had an AVID teacher leader? Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Kate Chapman.
Good evening, Chair Blassie, Vice Chair Herrera-Lopez, Superintendent Perry, and Budget Committee. My name is Kate Chapman. I reside at 852 Northeast Killingsworth Court, Portland, Oregon. I've been a teacher for 3 years. I've spent all 3 years at the district, at the same building, and I have learned that more than anything, teachers and students alike need more time. In terms of budget, this looks like smaller class sizes. As a social studies teacher, I teach the entire 7th grade class. One semester I teach half, second semester I teach the other half. I teach 6 classes a day. I love all of my students, but I don't have time to form a relationship with all of them. And my students have told me over and over again that what they need from their teachers is a relationship with them. Additionally, not cutting FTE will help with this class size issue so that students and teachers have more time together. Additionally, teachers need more time to communicate with each other and plan. Cutting required district PD and allowing teachers more self-directed time would improve student outcomes and cost the district less. Teachers are reflective practitioners. They know what they need, and they should have the professional responsibility to choose the PD that they need for themselves. This would also provide teachers more time to be on the same page for building district-wide expectations, which would support a more successful PBIS implementation. When staff have more time to direct themselves and meet with each other, there will be better outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, then last up we have Amy Saris. Sorry? Can't read it.
Good evening, Chair Blassie, Vice Chair Herrera, and Budget Committee. My name is Amy Solis, and I reside at 2165 Carlton Way Northeast, Salem, 97301. This evening, I would, first of all, I would like to share, this is my 10th year serving the Salem-Keizer School District. I am a product of the Salem-Keizer School District, and I'm a mother of 2 children that attend the Salem-Keizer School District. I would like to request that we stop spending money on educational excellence. It has become a point of frustration for many of us educators, especially on the bilingual education side of things. There seems to be a disconnect between our team members and those of us that are trying to work towards bilingual education for our students. The time that we are spending together has turned into filling out of forms and complying with methods that are suggested to our administrators by Ed Excellence support. And we have moved away from really focusing on the needs of our students and focusing on the needs of the curriculum that we are presenting to our kids. Especially in the upper grades, as we begin to think of integrating now 5th grade literacy squared into our schools. The older our kids are in the age group that we're teaching, the more that the setup that they have for these data teams is not relevant. We begin to lose that ability to be able to work together as a team and create materials that are going to meet the needs of those students. I am a 4th grade teacher, so 4th grade has become difficult. I can only imagine what 5th grade would be like. And just really having to follow the scope and sequence and the data collection timeframes that are set at these data teams really do not meet the needs of the students in a bilingual classroom that are working at meeting both the expectation of Spanish curriculum and English language curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So that is everyone that we had signed up for public comment. Let's see. Okay. So with the remaining time that we have, I think we will go back to the questions from committee members and see if we have any additional questions. I know, Mark, you had some. I want to see if other folks have questions as well, since you had a list. Livy?
Yeah, I just want to make a general comment. I think a lot of the questions that the budget committee members submitted is because we need some additional background to make an informed decision. So perhaps we don't. This might be information that is not critical for this year's proposed budget, but in terms of understanding how the budget is structured, how it's put together, I think we would make a more informed decision and a better decision if we have some of this information. So I'm kind of planting a flag for the next budget cycle that we take up again what we did this cycle of meeting earlier, and maybe having this type of questions be sent out earlier, so we can get a lot of this information, as much of it before the budget message comes out. So we spend most of our time trying to pick apart the actual recommendations and the additions. But I think I know I have a ton of questions that are more just structure or like background. Do I need them to make decisions on this budget? Probably not, but I think I would be making a much better decision if I had that. So I just wanted to make that general comment.
Yeah. Well, and I would agree with that. I think for those of us, it was our first time on the budget committee, but maybe have served on other budget committees. I think the structure is a little different, and I would agree that some additional background information up front would be helpful, especially for such a large, complex budget. So, thank you. Okay, Mark, you're up.
Thank you. So my first question is, so I'm going to start at the front of the packet. Follow on to number 6, which we've heard a lot of public testimony about, and that's the English language bilingual instructional assistants. The part that I don't think was maybe adequately addressed in the handout that this answer refers to is, so as I understand it, this is based on a change in definition from the state. What is our experience in the classroom of whether the new state definition actually matches with the instructional experience that we've been seeing in the classroom? We have some evidence from public testimony that there's concern that maybe the change in state definition doesn't reflect what's actually going on in the classroom. And I wonder if, Superintendent, you have any thoughts or reaction to that that could help us understand, is this something we should be seeking to change in the budget?
I'm going to look at Linda.
Mark, I can respond to some of that. So the flat response is, yes, we believe that the change in the identification mechanism and the exiting mechanism is where we are seeing the majority of the difference. And what that automatically triggers is access to the legally mandated provision of ELD in a required 30-minute instructional package every single day. So a student that does not qualify as a limited English proficient student is not legally required to participate in that mandated 30 minutes of instruction at the elementary level. However, ELD instruction is good for all kids. It's rich vocabulary, it's syntax and grammar, but that's the direct correlation of services versus non-services when students qualify or don't qualify. Additional supports from bilingual instructional assistants in the classroom. If an instructional assistant is in the classroom supporting, they will support any child who needs that, regardless of whether they are officially qualified in the program or not. So really what we will see is a reduction of an hour, maybe 2 hours from those bilingual instructional assistants in the classroom
This will not be related to ELD instruction. It can't be. That's a legal mandate. So what we might see is a reduced offering of some interventions or some reduced supports during a portion of the day. And it will be difficult to quantify the impact of that, which is partially why we attempted to spread across the reductions in the hopes that some of that could potentially be backfilled, or that schools could get creative in trying to maintain some of those supports for kids.
So an example is one school, a couple of our schools, I think the max is 4.5 hours of lost time. So the 12 FTE spread out across 44. I know of 3 schools for sure that they're losing about 4 hours a day.
So I may have missed in the response, what was the actual change in the state's definition?
Sure. So the exiting criteria used to be that on the ELPA exam, so the English Language Proficiency Assessment, you needed to demonstrate proficiency in multiple areas, reading, writing, speaking, and listening, in order to be exited. And so there were benchmarks associated with those. The criteria now for exiting is if you demonstrate proficiency in one of those areas, then the district exits you. There are special considerations that can be put in place where students might not be exited with those scores, but the major shift was the benchmark was no longer was the requirement of meeting the benchmark in all 4 areas.
So I guess that gets to my actual question. So how do we feel about that change in definition? Do these students continue to need the level of support that they had before, where in order to exit, they had to meet the excellence in all of those categories rather than just in a single category? And if we don't agree with the new state definition, do we have an obligation to backfill those funds so that we're able to provide the support that we had been providing?
So the one thing I would say, we have a really rich intervention response system in the areas of reading and writing. So regardless of whether a student is speaking English as a second language, any child that needs intervention in targeted reading skills can receive that. And so that's regardless of bilingual instructional assistant status. And so it's an interesting dialogue. Do we believe that we can still meet the needs of kids with a reduction? We're going to have to tighten the belt. There's no question to that. Do I believe that this is going to decimate the services that we're able to provide for our kids? I don't believe that.
Okay.
It's okay. Go ahead, Marcia.
Just an additional question. You said there were 4 areas, and it sounds like we could prioritize, and that you have really reading and writing. Is that true? I mean, that's what it kind of comes across as.
Sure. So we offer interventions for all students, regardless of their bilingual status, just based upon skills deficiencies and assessment scores. So as we track and monitor data, if a student needs an additional support system in the area of reading, that's provided outside of their core literacy instruction.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
It seems to me we need to be really careful, again, of data collection so we can answer those questions. So next year, we won't be sitting in the same situation that we are right now.
Okay. So, Mark, how about if we move on to the next question?
So I have a question on page 10. The chart, number 54, the graphic that was inserted that had to do with the calculation of weighted daily attendance numbers. The part of the calculation, it appears, is students in poverty. And I have heard recently about Salem-Keizer that 60% of our students are in poverty. This would seem to indicate a substantially lower percentage qualify for this calculation, and I'm wondering if you can help us understand what definition qualifies as poverty here versus this much larger figure that's frequently talked about.
You got it, Mike? No, you're
It's
looking for
actually
me.
pointing at you.
Okay, so, well, there we go. So the 60% is percentage of kids free and reduced lunch. So the free and reduced lunch is our number we use. The state has a formula, and I don't know if I'll get all the specifics right of it, that's based on the national census. And it affects our title funds and our state poverty funds. And what it looks like from the U.S. Census is that it looks like our poverty is going down, but I think it's in relation to poverty across the country. So did I get that?
Yes, yeah.
And
My
so
answer.
it's two different numbers. It's
Okay.
census, and when we look at our poverty decreasing, we're looking and thinking, how in the world can our poverty be decreasing? So we see it in our title funds, we see it here as well. And this is a calculation that districts get in their state school fund, but not related to free and reduced lunch.
Right. No, and that was clear, and I wasn't questioning the number
No.
other than just understanding the difference between those. This was a really helpful calculation, and I would request that it be presented in future budget messages, just to help us understand all of these different categories.
The ADMW piece of this, yep.
Yeah.
Jesse?
Okay, sure. So I have a question on the educational excellence. So there is a question already on here, number 3, that addresses the amount that we spend on educational excellence. What I would like to know is could we request additional information about if we were to scrap educational excellence, what could we replace it with? Or do they need a replacement? Do teachers just need time to talk with each other? And so I would like a report on that, something showing what we could do instead of that.
Okay, I'll interject here. I think that that's probably a bigger question than for the budget committee about scrapping a program. It's kind of like we were talking about AVID. That's part of the district's strategic plan, and that's a discussion I think for the board. So do you have a question specific to the budget?
Well, if we're going to recommend cutting funds from a specific program, okay, the program can stay. Can we get a report saying what would happen if we removed funds from that program and put them into other funds, reallocating the funds from that program into something else that would benefit teachers?
Again, is that a budget question, or
It's about
that is
money
a
from the budget being moved,
policy?
yes.
Or that's a policy question? Because it sounds like a policy decision with regards to a program.
So let me ask a question. Would it be helpful for us to give a 1-minute, here's what Ed Excellence does for us? Would that be helpful?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm looking at Linda then and Ed Excellence, and what do they do for us?
So we have multiple contracts with Ed Excellence, and they come in as a consulting agency. And so we partner with them in conjunction with instructional coaching for our Title I schools. So coming in and looking at school improvement plans at our Title I schools and coaching up instructional mentors and leadership teams in our Title I schools regarding high leverage instruction, what kinds of strategies work best, are moving the dial most quickly on student achievement, building assessments and using the data from the assessments to help guide future instruction through the use of data teams. In addition, they provide professional development to our administrative teams, our instructional mentor teams. We have a specific contract that brings them in for a certain number of professional development sessions to make sure that we're using